Do you believe in ghosts? Even if you are a die-hard skeptic, you may have second thoughts after you watch this next segment.
Ka ina mai ana I loko hale kai malu malu o ku ka halo ke kai kua hine he aloha he aloha kākou e.
My name is Lopaka Kapanui. I'm the owner of Mysteries of Honolulu, and it's a company that takes you on experiences and not so much tours, and we go to haunted places around the island. I believe that ghosts and spirits and apparitions and poltergeists are the leftover energy of a living person who, for some reason or another, has determined that they don't want to go to the other side. And maybe they have unfinished business, a few more things they want to say to their living relatives or friends, and that's probably why they're here all the time. As far as people being able to see a ghost, I think it depends upon their level of reception. The way I put it is everybody is a human antenna, but some get the full signal, others just get sounds, and others are only able to feel things or be felt. With my personal experience, how all of this started for me is when I was a child. I had a kidney problem, and so I spent 2 or 3 years in and out of the hospital having my kidneys cleaned, and I also had a bad asthma condition. And so one day I had an asthmatic attack that was really bad. I fainted and was taken to the hospital, was pretty near dying, very close, right at the edge. And fortunately I recovered, but after that incident, and I think I was about 5 or 6 years old, I suddenly began to see things and hear things and feel things, things that weren't really there, things that only I could see. And for about a month or so, while I was in Children's Hospital, the old Children's Hospital on Kuakini, my Hanai grandmother would come and see me every day. At about 3 or 4 o'clock she would leave, and shortly after that my Hanai parents would come. And I would always tell them that, you know, Grandma was here and we had a great time and she was reading me this book, and they'd look at me and smile. And so after I fully recovered and I was brought back home, my Hanai parents sat me down and said that during the time I was in the hospital, my Hanai grandmother had already passed away. And so they thought that it was impossible that I could have seen her, and maybe I was just delusional. But the thing about that is at that point in my life, I never saw her. I never met her, but when she would come, she would say, "I'm your Hanai grandma, and I've come just to sit with you and make sure that everything's okay." And then they bring out her picture, and it's the woman that I would see every day. After that happened, my biological mother, who was Hawaiian, was skilled enough to see what was going on, and she understood it. And so she took me aside and explained that everything I was seeing, feeling, hearing, and the things that were interacting with me was a natural part of our environment as Hawaiian people. Between high school and eventually ending up doing what I'm doing now, I did a lot of odd jobs. And something strange happened in 1991. There was a play at Leeward Community College. They were having auditions for it. It was called Waianae. And it was the history of the Waianae district from ancient times until that period. But something about that experience made me re-explore my culture and reconnected me with my mother. So that in 1994, a friend of mine that I was working with at a hotel in Waikiki was raving on and about this ghost tour in downtown Honolulu, and how this Caucasian man was the one who was giving it. And when I heard this man speak, I realized that everything he was saying was everything I heard and learned about growing up. And about a week later, I was already dancing hula for my cousin Keone Nunes. After hula, he announced to all of us that we were going to be part of this ghost tour in Waianae, and he was going to be co-hosting it with his good friend Glen Grant. There was a portion where the halau would dance a hula as sort of an interpretation of a story connected to that place. And so that was basically what we did. But after that, my cousin and I followed along almost every Saturday. And I think it was through the function of listening and retaining that I sort of learned the tour myself, you know, as I heard it. Worked with him from 1997 and officially began doing ghost tours under the tutelage of Glen Grant in 1999. About 2001, I was out of work for about 6 months, and I was having a really hard time. And one day I was at home with my daughter, and there was a knock on the door, and I looked through the peephole, and there was Glen Grant standing there. So I opened the door. I said, "Hey boss, what's going on?" And he looks at me and he reaches into his pocket and he hands me a blank check. And he says, listen, I hear you're having a hard time. He says, why don't you just take this, fill it out for whatever amount you need. He said, don't go crazy and just take care of your family. And I told him, I said, you know, even if I take this check, there's no way I can pay you back. And he looked at me, he says, I'm not worried about money. I have money, it's not about money, it's about you taking care of your family. It was at that point that Glen Grant really made a deep impression on me as to what kind of man he really was. Here is a man who is famous for his books and his ghost stories, but here was someone who was also very compassionate about someone that he didn't really know too well, and that was me. But from that point on, the man won my loyalty, and even today, even though he's not here in the flesh, you know, there isn't a day that goes by that I don't talk about him. And when I take people on these excursions, I always make sure that they know how this started, where it came from, where I came from, you know, and that Glen is the foundation of what this is today. Well, the best way to find me is on my Facebook fan page, Mysteries of Honolulu. I advertise a lot of the excursions that I'm doing, but I also post stories here and there, and that's eventually leading to an ebook that's going to be published very soon. I have in mind sometime in 2013 to expand my tours to the outer islands.
Aloha e